right, Peter. I'm really glad that we're doing this. Working with the Belong and BU curriculum this semester turned out to be much more personal experience for me than I expected. I found that I did a lot of reparative work, especially in writing my personal stories.
Right.
So that was unexpected for me. And creating those stories from my own lived experience felt like kind of reliving it all over again, of course, but with the perspective and understanding that I have now. And it didn't make it any less or real or emotional, but it did give me a way to make sense of it differently, and in some ways to reparent all of those parts of me that were coming up. And then to also be witnessed with the kids too. And I know that my story made an impact on them because it was really a turning point in the conversations and the dialogue that we had with the kids. So it was a very, very powerful experience, and it reminded me of why I loved teaching and why I loved working with kids. And I just wanted to share that I was really, really changed by that class. And it all begins with you writing that book with Diane. And I can't wait to share more of that here. So I'd love to start there, or wherever feels right with you. What has been on your mind lately, or something that you have been reading or thinking about that has been staying with you?
Now I'm just wishing I could hear more about your story. Like, I want to know what the story was.
Yeah, I'm happy to share my story with you.
Yeah, because
any of them.
that's so that's what's on my mind right now is what was Andrea's story, and what was your intent, and how did it go over? And
Yeah. Okay, well, I did 2 of them and my partner did 1.
so you're in the middle of a counseling group, 8-9 weeks or something.
Yes.
And now
no, it's earlier than that. I feel like isn't it about week 4?
But the whole thing is about 9 weeks.
Yeah, 9 weeks. Yeah.
And so now you're in the middle, and you've been doing a few sessions with them, and all of a sudden you start showing up a little bit more by telling your own story.
Yes. And I think that for the kids, it makes you more real.
Yeah.
It makes you more connected to them. It makes you not feel like an adult standing in front of them telling them what to do.
Right.
It personalizes you in a way. And so I told 2 stories. I told a story about high school, my first year of high school, where I was bullied. And I expressed... I shared how we were all playing spin in the bottle, and I was dared to do something, and it became something that I was taunted and teased about, the decision that I made with that kid, because I told him no. And so he got spread around the school, and I shared a very similar story of when I was in 5th grade. That was my first story, where I had a theme. I expressed my feelings for somebody in a letter on Valentine's Day, and it got passed around the school. And so I was new to the school, and so it really isolated me in that experience as well. So
Publicly shamed.
Yeah. So
So at the end of like that story of when you told them when you told your group that you had expressed your feelings for somebody in a note and it got passed around the school, what was the end of your story? So, like, I'm telling you this because, or...
Oh, because I never want this to happen to you.
Yeah.
Because I want to make sure I stayed silent. I really struggled in school in both cases, and I in high school, I would hide in the bathroom so that he couldn't find me because our classes let out at the same place in the hallway. And so
Wow.
I got wise to it and just started to get my backpack and immediately turn the opposite direction. Instead of heading out for lunch, I would go hide in the bathroom and just eat my lunch in the bathroom. So my hope was to let them know that they actually have adults who care about them. And I'm not saying that I didn't know that. I just felt really alone in my process.
Yeah.
In the earlier example in fifth grade, my teacher just handed me the letter and there was no discussion about it, right? So there was no repair done for either
Right.
situation. Yeah. And so, yeah. So
I mean, I'm really sorry to hear that those things happened to you.
thank you.
And it's not an uncommon theme that comes up in the stories of the grad students who are telling
Yes.
they're telling the sixth graders, that feeling that it's not that they're not, as you said, that you're not aware that there are people out there, but somehow there's a disconnect, or there's not a permission, or there's not an invitation to actually find support, or there's your own inhibitions. You said you stayed quiet.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think even if you do know your teachers care or the professionals around you care, or even maybe your parents care, they're busy. They
Yeah.
may not care about something so trivial. It seems so big to you, but
It's pretty big.
it's pretty big, but from your perspective, I think when you're a kid, you might think, oh, like my dad's worried about money right now, or
Right, right.
it seems small in comparison to what my parents might be dealing with, or my teacher, doesn't really care about the fact that this note, she just doesn't want me to be passing notes, or so
Right.
more from the perspective of a kid, I just think that we as children maybe misunderstand. And I really wanted to convey, I think that's how we closed up our group too. We had each of our kids talk about a safe person that they could go to.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was really important to me that they identified that.
Yeah.
And one of them in our group even really struggled with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So really gives you insight into what's going on at home.
Yeah.
I had a lot going on at home, and that was part of the problem. Yeah.
So you said that you know that your story had an impact on them.
Yeah.
How do you know that?
Well,
What happened?
they all were pretty shut down. They were a very introverted group. I think we had a lot of neurodivergent children, and so a lot of them were artists, very introverted. Some of them had speech or developmental issues, absolutely. And so when we had begun the groups, they were pretty shut down and maybe one word answers, or if at all. I mean, we definitely had one that was more expressive, but for the most part, we couldn't get them to really talk to us or connect. And once I told that story, I was the first to go. The one that couldn't make eye contact, that was not nonverbal, actually started to hang out next to me. And so I think that really shifted her perspective on safety. And I think it shifted their perspective on the fact that Leslie and I were, safe people to come to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I really tried to express, too, in all of the group work, that we had a different relationship with them. We're not their parents. We're not their teachers.
Right.
We're not their administrators. They aren't going to get in trouble with us.
Mm-hmm.
And that safety doesn't always exist in a child's life, as you know. You have a lot of experience. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. Yeah, but that's why it was so profound.
So that one student came and started sitting next to you.
Yeah.
And what happened as the next few weeks unfolded in terms of more stories from you and your co-counselor?
I mean, my co-counselor didn't obviously go as deep, maybe, didn't have a writing background, maybe not as comfortable as being vulnerable or sharing. And I'm sure her story was important to her. I'm not saying or dismissing that, but For me, I just noticed that the kids, like, even when I said goodbye to them, 4 or 5 of them gave me a hug.
Yeah.
They all wanted us to sign their cards at the end,
Mm-hmm.
and I listened to all the presentations, even including yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we were the only group that really, I'm not saying that connected with the kids. I'm saying that they felt something for both of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got attached. They expressed, a week before that they were really upset that it was going to end, and that was pretty much across the board.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, another student after the first fifth grade story, another student said, and this may be just their language for it, but she said, "Mark is chopped." And I laughed because I was like, what does that mean? And she was like, he doesn't get access to you anymore. Yeah. She just felt like
He
she
was
needed
the
to
kid
protect me. Yeah. She needed to
in your
protect me.
story.
So, yeah. So anyways, I feel like they saw me as maybe an older person. They saw me as kind of old. I'm not as young. Leslie is 20, let's see, she's 26, 25. Yeah, so I'm like half her age. I could be your mother.
Yeah.
And so, I may look young, but I also know I'm an older person to them.
Yeah.
And so they immediately connected to Leslie in this fact that, she's talking their language and, telling them about TikTok videos that she's watched and, connecting with them in a very different way. And
Right.
so it was a turning point, I think, for me because they were like, oh, okay, you have a history. And I think also, and I think I maybe even told you this on the street when we were talking after the Barron side, which we'll get to, that it's as if they saw me as a real person.
As if they saw you as a real person.
Well,
Yeah,
as
'cause I
opposed
know
to
exactly what you
like
mean.
a
'Cause
put together
before then-
person.
Right. Before then, you were an adult who was
Yeah.
in that other world of adulthood.
Yes.
But it sounds like, and I've experienced that too, that when you show up like that and tell your own story, suddenly you come into focus, or you somehow,
Yes.
they see you as coming out of that abstracted realm and into the,
Yeah.
this is somebody I can relate to. They're telling me something.
Yes.
It makes me think of two things you telling that. First of all, in the telling of the story, that helps you come down off of that adult cloud, right? And,
Yes.
And so it's the narrative, it's the real life details of the note and their too easily imagined shaming of everyone seeing what was written on the note and the name of the kid. Was that in fifth grade or in high school?
Fifth grade.
Marcus?
Mark.
Oh, Mark was the kid you were writing to.
Yes.
And he passed it around?
His friend Daniel, who was the teacher's son, grabbed it out of his hand.
Who was the teacher's son?
Grabbed it out of his hand, and then I watched it just get spread around during
Right.
lunchtime. Yeah.
Yeah, and so, I mean, there's that cringy,
Yeah.
that's painful, and we all know about embarrassment and humiliation and public shaming and all that. So there's that level of empathy that you're providing for them. But what else I thought about when you were describing that is when you said when you were talking about whether you could have reached out to an adult or not, and that they were busy and occupied,
Yes.
or you imagined that. But and that what you were feeling wasn't that important, or what your experience wasn't
Yes.
that important. And it makes me think about how that's also the goal, or one of the goals of that group is to give them words to these things, these experiences,
Yes.
that show that those things are really important. Like the book is called Belong and Be You.
Yeah.
And in that moment, and we talk about belonging, like that was a story for being embarrassed or feelings, is that what it was? Or was it about
That was the feelings, yeah.
Yeah, so we tell a story about feelings
Yeah.
and how hard it is to manage them in
Yes.
public and so forth. And then the next week is one about either finding belonging or finding your
Yes.
unique self.
Yeah.
Was that the story about the...
That was Leslie's.
Oh, that was Leslie's.
Yeah.
And to me, like it really helped to be, as an adult, to discover that people had done all this research and understood what the real core developmental tasks are for a 12-year-old, and they're trying to find a way to stay connected.
Yes.
To all the kids in that, because they don't want to feel isolated like an animal who's vulnerable and is going to be, in your case,
Shunned.
Shunned, because that's a kind of death experience that they don't want to have as an animal.
Yes.
So you want to stay close to the group.
Yep. And fit in.
And
be accepted.
And your note might have even been an effort towards that. You want to feel connected to Mark and show him and have a boyfriend and all those kinds of things that start happening. But you also don't, the flip side of that, I like this term dialectical, but it's kind of a fancy word, but it's just really that there's two sides to that coin, because the belonging is one side. I want to belong, I want to feel connected, but I also have to maintain who I am and to be able to stand on my own 2 feet and not to dress like everyone else just because everyone else is dressing like everyone else. And who am I? And what am I going to do in this situation? Or am I going to go along with the group that laughs at Andrea? But I didn't have words for those things when I was in 6th grade.
No, I didn't either.
Or how important they were.
Yeah.
And so like this moment that was passed over for you, where the teacher saw the note and just handed it back to you, instead of using that as a teachable moment of talking to a class about, is this the way we want to include people in this group? Or when people have something personal, should it be passed around? Would you want what you have
passed around
and laughed at? Like it could have been a moment of real, because that is the curriculum of a 6th grader or a 5th grader, is to try to manage, how do I belong and how do I stand my own ground?
Yeah. So that's a great segue, and I'm sure this question is down here somewhere, but what was the impetus for starting that curriculum?
Yeah, there's different ways to answer that. I'll talk about it professionally and personally.
Okay.
So professionally, I was already teaching a group counseling class at Lewis and Clark, and it was up on the hill, which Lewis and Clark is.
Yes.
And it was called Group Counseling with Children and Adolescents, which it's still called.
Yeah.
But we didn't work with children and adolescents. We would do these role play groups where it was Andrea's turn to lead a group, and she brought in a curriculum for the day. And
interesting.
You would mock that, and you would all be sitting in little groups around the room. And that's how I taught it for the first few years. And I was new to Portland, so I didn't have any connections to real schools and real kids. But that's not the way that class was taught is not unusual. Like that's the way. In fact, that's the way the adult class is taught. Like, you don't go out and work with adults.
Yes. We role play.
Yeah. Did you take that class?
Yes.
Yeah. You took both the counseling classes.
I did.
Good for you.
Well, I was really torn. I think I told you this as well. I was really torn between the two. I feel drawn to working with adults, but I also really, really have enjoyed working with children.
Yeah.
And I miss it. And I don't know how that's going to play out, but I was interested in both to see if that helped clarify it. And for me, it just made me think, oh no, I like little people as much as I like big people.
Good
problems
for you.
Too. Yeah.
And
I just like helping.
And I think one thing I hope people take away from that class is that groups are so amazing.
They are. And they're profound.
They're profound. And
I think they're almost sometimes better than individual counseling. Yeah. And I learned that a lot in the adults group. Like It's really beneficial Because it reflects your family dynamics. I
Yeah.
mean, let's go back to Yalom.
Right.
How you show up in a group is essentially, how you're
Yeah,
showing up in your family.
and that's how they are in sixth grade too.
Mm-hmm.
So that class I was teaching that class when
Yep.
I first arrived for the first 5 years maybe when I was at Lewis and Clark, and then I had a student in that class, or definitely in the program, the school psychology program.
It was in that class if you're talking about Diana, because she just told me
No, it
yesterday.
wasn't Diane, but
Okay.
before Diane,
Before Diane.
there was a woman named Kaki Hoffman.
Kaki.
Yes.
Okay.
And if Kaki's still out there, I would love for her to reach out. I've tried to find her, but I haven't been able to locate her email or whatever. So Kaki was a student in the program, and she was doing an internship at David Douglas School District. And she helped, as part of her internship, she was motivated to write a grant to run after-school programming at 3 of the elementary schools out in David Douglas School District, because she knew from the research that after school is the most precarious time for kids, between sort of the safety or containment of schools and the home life. There's this 3-hour window where many kids are going home and nobody's there, or because their parents are working or whatever. So she wrote this grant, and I wrote a very small part of it with her, and so did another professor, Carol Doyle. And she got a $1.25 million grant to...
From the state of Oregon?
No, from the feds. This was part of No Child Left Behind, which was back in the early aughts.
Yes.
And so
I remember. That's when I became a teacher.
Yeah. So she...
They were giving out teaching credentials like it was going out of style.
So she helped get this program going and asked me to help with it. And so I brought some school psychology practicum students, and as part of their practicum, they helped run these after-school groups. And so we started running a curriculum within these, and they were elementary at that point, elementary school.
Okay.
So 4th graders or 5th graders, and they did some of the sort of activities that you did, but that was sort of the start of it. And then the grant ran out, and actually very soon after the grant got going, Diane, who had also been a student in that group counseling class, was in her internship and was helping to supervise some of these school psych practicum students. And so the two of us were teaching. She was covering the after-school program, and I was covering the practicum part.
Okay.
And that went on for 5 successful years at different elementary schools, and was an amazing experience for our students and a great experience for the elementary school students, and I think really helpful to the schools, because we were running it in the, like the school cafeteria or the gym or whatever at 3 of those elementary schools. And then the grant ran out. And the grant allowed us to pay those grad students and to pay...
They were paid.
Yeah, they were paid. And then there was Boys and Girls Club, and they were paid to help sort of structure the after-school programming.
So fairly robust.
And it was a great collaboration, because it was Boys and Girls Club, David Douglas School District, Lewis and Clark College.
Yes.
So we were all in on that. So then we rewrote the grant, but the funding changed and the funding models changed, and they were no longer interested in elementary school. They wanted to focus on middle school or high school. And by that time, the ship had left, and we weren't going to get any funding for the next period. So that was 2009. So in just about, because the grant ran from 04 to 09. So...
and probably different administration by then.
Yeah, so the administration was shifting as well. Yeah. So the money was just different also. So Diane and I remember riding my bike out to David Douglas School District like I would every Wednesday, and having this moment like, oh, well, I could teach the group counseling class
at the school.
And we could still maintain these relationships. And the students, my grad students, would get an opportunity to work with actual kids during this class rather than pretend adults. And it was such a simple idea that I've often wondered why that doesn't happen more often in grad schools. And I know
We've petitioned it.
I know that there's ethical and legal issues because these people aren't, officially licensed as grad students. But they were supervised in doing this work, and we were careful to have the school's counselors involved and so forth. So the districts loved it. And at first, when the class came out today, and Lewis and Clark loved it because it gave our students an opportunity to do hands-on work.
It's like a practicum.
Yes, like a practicum.
For 9 weeks, but
yes.
Yeah.
So at first it was after school because that's what the original grant had been. So the grad students would come and meet in a room out at David Douglas, and then they would go off and run these after-school groups as part of their group counseling class. And that lasted for a couple of years. But we started to realize that the fit with 4th and 5th graders wasn't that great because developmentally we were sort of more interested in themes that were happening a couple of years later in middle school. And so we reached out to some of the teachers that worked at the middle school that we knew for years through this grant work, and they were like, yes, come to Ron Russell. And so for I think it's been, I can't remember how many years, 10 years, 12 years, we have been, and you were part of that. Diane's been continuing that class, even though I've stopped teaching it in the last couple of years. So we've been in Ron Russell Middle School with the graduate students running these 9-week counseling groups for middle schoolers during their school day as part of their health curriculum. So it was social skills, conflict resolution, emotional regulation. Those things were part of their health curriculum, the school district's health curriculum anyway, and we were meeting some of those guidelines through the curriculum that we wrote. So the curriculum got developed, and some of it came out of this early work that I had done with boys, with Stephen Grant and Howard Heighton, where we had run
BAM.
Yeah, BAM, Boys Advocacy and Mentoring. So we had run groups with boys when we realized there wasn't really a great curriculum that wasn't just punitive in terms of working with boys. So we wrote our own curriculum and published it. And so some of the curriculum migrated into this Belong and Be You, but Diane and I evolved it over 10 years, and every term, based on your feedback as a student, we tweaked it like, oh, that's better if that happens in week 5, or what are we really trying to, is this an anti-bullying curriculum? Not really, because we're not just interested in bullying, but we're also interested in these deeper issues or these more proactive, preventative goals regarding how do we help kids connect and also stand their own ground. And that became like the real centerpiece. So we modified the curriculum over time and then ultimately wrote it up with a lot of those examples from other students and their stories. And that was published just a few years before I retired, and that's the professional story.
What's the personal story?
Well, the personal story is that 6th grade was my personal nightmare.
Was it? That's what I wondered.
Yeah, for many kids, but I was a sensitive kid who also was publicly shamed because I had shared something about sexual exploration to a group that I probably should not have trusted, and it just went everywhere.
Yep.
And so I was publicly humiliated. And again, to them, I've actually asked some of these, because I still am in touch with a number of my 6th grade.
I was going to ask you about that. We can talk about Mark too, yeah.
Yeah. So I've asked them, like, what do you know this was happening to me? And they were like, not really. But for me, it was the world, right?
Oh, yeah.
So
it is the world. It's 8 hours of your day. You don't spend any other 8 hours except to sleep.
And then this was a Catholic school, so I was with the
I
same
was
group of students for
private.
8
Oh
years.
God.
So it was like not being able to get away either. And they weren't horrible, evil kids, but there was a handful of them, of even just 1, 2, and that shifts a lot if there's just a couple of leaders moving in a particular direction.
Yep.
And I was I guess, an easy scapegoat during that time. So, yeah, so as a personal edge of this, it was healing to realize that what I was struggling with was really not very different from what most kids are trying to do, which is I want to show up and be seen for who I am and accepted in a group and not humiliated or isolated or shunned.
Yeah.
But I also want to have my own identity and know who I am and not have to just go along with what Wally thinks I should do.
Yeah.
Because Wally's a bit of a rabble rouser.
Uh-huh. Yeah. I reached out to Mark. I shared this with all of the kids. I reached out to Mark maybe in 2022 on Facebook, maybe. Or maybe he reached out to me. I can't remember. No, I reached out to him. And he said, and I shared this with the kids, that he always thought I was so brave. And I had no idea.
So you had the sense that nobody knew what a painful experience it was.
That's right.
But also, you didn't know that somebody thought the way you were handling it was with bravery.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And that incident, obviously coupled with other incidents, including the one that happened in high school, really changed the trajectory of how I expressed myself. And yeah, had I known, had we had the time to share that, it would have really changed things. I mean, he apologized. He was like, I didn't know that it had such an impact on you. Same thing.
He didn't know.
Well, yeah. I mean, for most kids, they're kind of like out of sight, out of mind. Yeah, sure. It's done. And that I wasn't consistently teased. I just really shut down as a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I think probably as kids around me, they probably just all assumed that I was having a hard time adjusting. I was brand new at the school, So it was a private school, and I was already struggling.
Yeah.
Because I went from public to private.
Right.
So I was behind academically, and then I was definitely behind socially.
And new.
Not yet.
Connected.
Verified. Exactly. Yeah. So.
Well, it's interesting. I don't tell the
6th grade story.
The 6th grade story of my own experience.
Yeah.
For my own reasons, but I can talk about it like I just said to you.
Yeah.
But the story I do tell and did tell them, which is also written up in the book, is that when I was in 6th grade, I had a paper route, and I hated this paper route.
I hated mine too.
Oh my God. And I would, ink all over my hands, actual newsprint, rubber bands, fold, stuff them in.
Plastic bag. Yeah.
We didn't do the plastic bag thing because it was California. It was nice and dry.
I was in California.
Oh, wow.
Where were you in California?
This was in the Bay Area.
Okay. That's where I spent my young adult life. Yeah.
So, and then I'm riding around with these big, heavy bags every day after school, throwing the newspapers and trying to make a game out of it and reaching it up on the
stoop?
Yeah.
Me too.
And the thing I hated about my paper route was that it was, at that point in time, in history, it was my job as a 12-year-old to go up to every door of the house that I delivered newspapers
and
to
collect dues.
And knock on the door at dinner time and have the person open the door and say, I'm really busy right now. Can you come back tomorrow? Or nobody's home.
Yep.
And all I want is the $2.12 that you owe me.
Yep.
And so I never made money because I didn't collect enough money to pay off. It was like I was a sharecropper. Like I was paying off just enough to the people who own the newspaper, and I had none to keep for myself. So it was a nightmare job. But
I don't know
anyway,
that I made a ton of money either, and I was terrified,
but
but
now
I
they
didn't
all
have a choice.
bill electronically or whatever. And so
Yeah.
it isn't even your
No, I
job,
mean,
let
think of
alone
Girl Scout
walking.
cookies.
Yeah. Let alone walking out in the neighborhood at night, knocking on doors as a
Oh,
kid.
yeah. But we didn't I think about all the times that we were forced to do Girl Scout cookies, and like now moms just stand out in front of Fred Meyer with their kids at
Right.
a table, right? Yeah. So it was a very different time.
It was. And so I'm delivering these newspapers, and I always go down this one cul-de-sac, and I throw the newspaper over this fence, and behind the fence I can see this friend or fellow student who wasn't really a friend, and I'm going to call her Alice. So Alice is behind the fence, and she's the kind of kid who in my class was different in terms of the way she spoke. She maybe she spoke a little slower than others. She looked different. She had a different facial sort of affect, and physically she was different. And so she was not in with the in crowd.
Yeah.
And I remember throwing the newspaper and seeing Alice walking across the lawn with her sort of head down by herself, just kind of after school. In my emotional landscape was that's loneliness, right? Like, and so in the story that I would tell the sixth graders, I decided to invite Alice to this party I was having because my parents let me have one after school. And so people were coming on that night or whatever. And of course, Alice was like super excited to come. And so people are coming, and Alice comes. She's the first one. And I say, oh, great, there's a ping pong table and there's some snacks or whatever. And so she comes in, and pretty soon this other guy named Jason, we'll say, arrived at the door. And he was a really rough kid who I later found out was from a really rough family. And he looked over and saw that Alice was there and said, oh, what's Alice doing here? How gross. And I was stuck in this moment of like,
What do I do?
feeling really bad. I don't want Alice to be any more humiliated than she is on a daily basis. And yet it was really hard for me to confront this kid who had a lot of power in the class.
Yeah.
And I don't really remember how I confronted it, but I said something like, well, I invited her and you can come or you can go if you want, blah, blah, blah. And the party went on from there. And so in that sixth grade version, when I would tell the sixth graders, I would say the reason why I'm telling you this is because I think all of us are like Alice at different points.
Yes.
And don't feel like we're connected and feel too much different than everyone else. And that, it doesn't take very much to include somebody like that. And, there were times when I probably wasn't very nice to Alice either. And I know you probably talked about that in your group where we all kind of own that we've been bullies to other people in our own experience. But the other thing I wanted to say is that
if I ever was a bully.
Yeah, that's good.
I just
or
think
just
I was
dismissive or curt or hurtful.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
for sure. Maybe angry. I was very angry as a high schooler.
Right.
I was very angry about what was going on at home.
Right.
So I'm sure that came off as rude. Yeah.
And another thing that I didn't learn until adult life, which I would tell the sixth graders, is that Alice had an actual thing, a difference. It was called Williams syndrome. And, she struggled with that her whole life. And if we had been told if we had been given a word, just like belonging is a pretty important word for kids to know how important that is.
Yeah.
Being you is a pretty important couple of words to describe a real developmental challenge. And Williams syndrome would have been a way for us to understand, people are different.
Yeah.
And and there's a reason why they're different. And do we want to treat people who are different badly? And so again, it could have been a teachable moment for my teachers in 6th grade to say, there are kids have differences, and we need to honor difference. And so that was my story about how to talk about ostracization and
Being shunned.
and how do we make more of a community.
Well, I think we're really seeing that out in the world too now.
Say more?
Well, I think we're so divided
Yeah.
right now. We could have all used an experience like that, a teachable moment. But our teachers, I mean, you're a little older than I am, but our teachers, at least Gen X generation, wasn't really addressing a lot of feelings. I don't know
Right.
about your experience, but yeah, feelings weren't really discussed like they are now.
No.
And I don't know if that's to our detriment in the sense of how informed we are about feelings, about attachment theory, about certain things that now it makes us more opinionated or accusatory. I think there's also a social aspect of the fact that there's not a lot of accountability when you are talking to somebody's account that you probably will never come in real life contact with too.
Right.
But
Well, yeah, and that makes me think about how, belonging is a complex thing, because both belonging and being unique, again, have flip sides, right? So the positive thing about belonging is we all have a human, deep, innate animal desire and need to feel attached and feel connected. The flip side of that is joining the Ku Klux Klan or becoming a racist, homophobe, anti-trans, whatever it happens to be.
yeah.
So, and having a clique that online allows you to join that community, right? Like those communities exist. So there's a dark side to belonging.
Yeah.
Because belonging means we also exclude. When we're belonging, we also have people who do not belong. So I want the kids to know that too. It isn't just about belonging. Belonging's complicated.
Yes.
And it isn't just about being unique either, because maybe we have evolved or as a society to the point where we are putting too much light on, my uniqueness and my specialness, and I deserve this, and I am different from everyone else in the room. Because no, you're really not that different, and we all have human basic needs and commonalities, right? And so the flip side, or the positive side of being unique is, we are all, I'm over here and you're over there, and what skills are you bringing and what interests am I bringing? But the flip side of that is I can't feel connected, or I can't even find support because I'm so far into my own thing.
Yeah.
So both of those are complicated, and the world politically is struggling with that, right?
Yes.
I mean, that's, yeah.
Yeah.
So Belong and BU turns out to be fairly big, not just for 6th graders, but also for humans, right?
I agree. I think that's why it was so pivotal. I stepped into that class not really knowing what I was going to get into, and I just found it very profound. The experience was really wonderful for a number of reasons.
So can you say something more about that as an adult? How was Belong and BU something so profound? Not just the curriculum, but the concepts or the experience or...
I think for a number of reasons. The topics that you try to cover with the children are topics that I think as adults we still grapple with, like you mentioned.
How to manage emotions.
Yes.
How to deal with bullying.
Yes.
How to find your identity.
Yes.
How to find your connectedness.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think we do a better job in some ways, and sometimes we don't.
Right.
And maybe that's what I was referring to earlier when I was saying that it made me real to the kids, because it's like, I may look like I got it all figured out, but I didn't do a much better job than maybe your friend did, or,
Right.
you did. Yeah, and so that stepping into that class, I mean, I knew that we were going to work with children. I obviously knew there would be some sort of book that I was going to read, but I didn't have the syllabus. When you sign up for the class, you don't really know what the teachers are going to teach. I had done my research on who Laura and Diane were. I looked them both up and was excited about meeting them, and they did a terrific job, in my opinion, of leading us through it. But yeah, I think that I learned this too, and I was telling you off of camera earlier before we started that between that and listening to your recordings of the curriculum that you used to teach, if we were able to get to children much earlier and have those teachable moments with them, imagine the world that we would live in, because they eventually become adults, right? And we're impacting them when there isn't so much practice going the other direction. Yeah.
I'm really moved that it was so impactful to you, because, you write this stuff, you put it out there, you don't know if anyone reads it. So I'm a couple of years removed from it now.
Yeah.
I come back and visit the class, but it's very gratifying. So thank you.
You're welcome. It was very gratifying for me too. Yeah, like I said, I stepped into it and I had no idea that I'd be writing those stories. Obviously, I've done therapy and worked through some of my stuff, and and I think that's part of being in the counseling program as well. Like, it'll be difficult and there will be a demand and there will be a lot of assignments and there's a lot of expectations around what you'll have to be doing, and you kind of have to step into it with a really open heart and know that some classes are just going to really, pardon the expression, but kick your ass. And there have been classes that have really broken me open in ways that have, been unexpected. And maybe I should have expected that going into a counseling program. But again, no one gives you the syllabus for that either.
Sure.
Yeah. So you're welcome. I'm happy to give you that feedback, and I'm glad that it's meaningful to you.
The other thing you said, which I also heard when I visited a couple weeks ago, was that there was a lot of surprise from the grad students about, first of all, there was almost common terror about working with sixth graders.
Yes.
And then there was surprise that they might want to continue working with this population.
Like my partner. My partner told Diane and Laura yesterday that it totally changed her trajectory for who she wants to work with. She thought she would work with little kids.
Because what's interesting to me about that is that I was just writing about this yesterday, but one of my mentors in grad school, other than Violet Oaklander, was a man named Jules Zimmer. And he was a developmentalist and psychologist, and helped me understand a lot about development, and I got to teach with him a course on development when I was a grad student. He had worked with Piaget, and
oh wow!
And the reason why he had worked with Piaget is because he had gone into the counseling profession wanting to work with adults, and he was working in the prison system for many years, and then realized, wait, I'm on the wrong end of this thing, and so he went back. During a sabbatical, he went to Europe and Switzerland and worked with Piaget, and came back and had completely changed his professional profile to work in early education. And I underline that because so many people in grad school don't want to work with kids because they're too scary and we don't want to go there.
I was just talking about this yesterday. At the end of our class. And I think that is, so they, Diane and Laura are like, now you need to go back to your program and tell them what a great class this is and why they shouldn't be scared. And I said, I don't know that they'll listen to me. Because I think that when we go back to these ages, there's a part of us that is like, don't make me go back there, because junior high, if you talk to anyone, I don't know anyone that's gone through junior high and been like, oh yeah, that was The
That was
time of my
awesome.
life. It was a great time. Didn't learn anything. It was totally fine. Got along with all my friends. Yeah. Like it's such a hard time.
Just to underline that. So that made me think of one of the early stories that a grad student brought in when they're talking about exclusion and trying to belong. The story they were fashioning, we call them strategic stories.
Yes.
So the strategic story they were fashioning to tell their group was the following. So he says, so one day I went into my 6th grade and there were two, alpha dudes who were always running the show about pecking order. He was using different language, but they had made a list. They had ranked the popularity
Yeah.
of every kid in that class. And so that's in itself, like, I hear that part and I'm like shocked, like, oh my God, I can't believe the nerve and the status seeking behavior that's about, right? But the real punchline of the story comes next, his story, which is that what happened next was that after the kids in my class discovered there was this list of ranked popularity, I don't know if he said we or the class members started to compete to get higher on the list.
Well, yeah, it's like the Stanford social experiment at a smaller scale.
And I was like, oh my God, are you kidding me? So the brutality of what happens in 6th grade,
Yes.
in middle school, it's so raw.
It is so raw and no one wants to return. And I think, that says a lot about people's wounding or their experience and
No one wants to return.
No one wants to return. And I think also that is a lot of the work that we do in the program is to return to things. And I think depending on the semester, there's only so much bandwidth, right? But that is maybe having people confront a time in their life that they just don't want to relive.
And hopefully, we get better by helping other people too. So hopefully by returning.
Yes.
And it's sort of like a hero's journey, like you're willing to go into the dark place.
Yep.
And then come back out and share that with them.
Yep.
And as you were saying, it really helped them. That child came and sat next to you in your group because you were willing to go there. And otherwise, they would just see you as another abstracted adult, I think.
Well, I think she also really connected with me because I shared with her that I had selective mutism. So I had a hard time looking anyone in the eye. And
right.
Yeah. So
that's powerful,
I had a really hard time talking to adults. And so I think she was like, oh, you get me now.
And she non-verbally
came
and sat down next to you.
Exactly.
Right.
She's like, okay, now we're friends.
Right. I'll show you that, but I'm not going to talk about it.
Exactly.
Nice.
Exactly. Yeah. We've covered so much. Okay, let's see. I'm just going to scan some questions and see if there's anything that I really wanted to know because we got going there. And yeah, we're definitely more than halfway through. So, okay. A lot of this is personal about you, and I don't know how personal you want to get. When you think about yourself as a child, what did you love doing?
Yeah, the first thought that came up is that, I'm sort of semi-retired at this point, so I have time to do things like early in the morning going out on the Willamette River and stand-up paddleboarding.
Wow.
When it's absolutely quiet and there's no boats and there's no traffic, and I can actually see the traffic going to work across the bridge, but I'm looking at beaver tracks on the sand and, literally like their tails swishing across the sand and sea lions in the water so I feel really grateful to be doing that at this phase in my life. But part of that was that I've written a song about, it's called Standing on the Water. And in that song, I reference that even when I was a child, I used to sneak down to the creek and just hang out in this quiet, natural environment. So I think, or climb it. We had redwood trees, so I would climb the redwood tree all the way to the almost top and let the wind move the tree back and forth. And my mom would come out and be shocked that I was up that high. So I loved being immersed in nature, and I think I really liked quiet spaces, which is why middle school was so, and working in middle school for the last 24 years has been challenging too, because that's a hard place to go back to. It's loud,
It's
crowded,
very loud, super crowded,
chaotic feeling. So yeah, I love quiet, natural spaces, and did as a kid.
Did you grow up in Oregon?
No, in California.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
Okay, where in the Bay Area? In
I
the
was
East Bay?
born in San Francisco.
Were you?
Yeah. And raised down the peninsula in the town of Menlo Park, which was not the Menlo Park
that it is today.
now.
Yeah,
It
or
was a
even
small-
20 years ago.
Yeah, it was a small little town, and my dad worked at the post office. And,
Did he?
Yeah. Pretty
Wow.
sweet.
Yeah, awesome. My ex-husband grew up in Los Altos.
Oh, yeah. My high school was near there.
Yeah.
St. Francis High School.
Oh, yes. My two nieces went to St. Francis and my nephew.
Again, when I went there, it was like bare bones Brothers of the Holy Cross, and then it became a campus that had more endowment than Lewis and Clark has.
I know.
And, yeah.
It's so crazy to me. Yeah, that area has really changed a lot. It's even changed since I moved there. I mean, I went to Sonoma State, so a little bit north of that.
I almost went there.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I got my creative writing degree.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so I got to work with some really incredible professors at the time. And then I moved to San Francisco right after I graduated, and I stayed in the Bay Area I lived East Bay, South Bay. Yeah, but I lived there for 25 years before I moved to Portland.
Wow. Yeah. So we're both those people.
Yeah, we're the people that ruined Portland, is that what you're saying? I think I just recognized Portland for what it was. And to me, it seemed like it was going back in time if I had been in the Bay Area. And
It did feel like
I
that
was there in
when
the
I moved here,
80s,
for
and
sure.
to me, it was so much smaller, San Francisco. And so to me, Portland still had that feeling even in 2014 when we maybe not so much in 2014, but when I first came to Portland, it was 2007, 2008, and I just was like, oh, this is like the undiscovered Mecca. Like I need to move here because it just has that family feeling, and it, has the creativity and the expression of art. Like we were even talking about that, and they hadn't gotten rid of every single park and yeah, I'm laughing because it reminds me of the construction that they did on my street where they tore all the streets down and put in pavement. And I was like, no, it's happening again, here in Portland. But that's what San Francisco reminded me of. It was just concrete, and you had to travel. You had to travel to get into outdoor spaces. You couldn't just go down to the Willamette that morning and go to the Beavers and get still in nature. I mean, I can get into nature at the end of my street. So,
we're really
and that's what
fortunate
we are very fortunate. That's what I was drawn to because that's how I grew up too. I grew up in rural Orange County, southern Orange County, before it was developed.
Oh, yeah.
And so it was just
when there were orange trees.
Well, yes, there were orange trees in Irvine before they built it. There were, and strawberry fields. Yeah, we would drive by them. Yeah.
Why is that that question about what did I like or what did I do as a young person? How's that important to you, or what?
Well,
why do you like to ask that question?
I ask about your childhood because I'm always curious about how people begin their lives and how that sets the stage maybe for their venture, their journey. Yeah. Obviously, you love working with kids, otherwise you wouldn't work with kids.
Right.
You've already spoken to the fact that a lot of the program doesn't want to do this class because they don't want to work with kids. I think it takes a very brave person even to teach kids.
I think about mentors. You asking me, or you bringing up, our early experience, and like I don't think I would have bumped onto the road that I've been on if it hadn't been for mentors. Like I'm thinking of
Oh, yes.
one I mentioned, St. Francis High School. So I had a dean at that high school, was a priest, Father John Bitterman, and after I left that high school, I went to community college, which was an amazing structure in California. You could go for 2 years, which I did for almost free, and then transfer to the state system.
Yep.
So I was able to transfer to Berkeley. I kind of got in there.
Oh, you went to Berkeley.
I got in there on mistake. I could tell that story, but
how did you get? Hold on. How did you get in there by mistake? From what I know,
I do want to get
you.
back to the Bitterman story.
Okay,
but I'll
okay.
say so. Yeah, because I was drifting. I didn't know who I was going to be at 17 years old.
Yes, I did.
And I remember going to hear a guitarist, Will Ackerman, with a friend of mine, Greg Loney, and at the break, Greg said, "What do you this was when we had been at community college for 2 years or a year and a half or whatever." And he said, "So what are you doing after this?" And I said, "I don't know." I sort of had some vague idea I was going to be a carpenter or a organic farmer or something, because it was sort of the hippie days. So he said, "Yeah, well, I applied to Berkeley and I'm going to the engineering program." And I was like, "Oh." So I went home and hand wrote an application to Berkeley.
Back when we
and I said, "Okay, I finally decided who I am. I'm going to be a graphic artist," because of some experiences that I'd had.
That's what I was supposed to go to college for.
So I applied to the graphic arts program at Berkeley, and I get a letter, again, probably handwritten a month later, and it says, "Congratulations, you've been accepted to Berkeley. However, we don't have a graphic arts program."
Hilarious.
So you are assigned to the humanities program. And I was like, all right, I'll go. I mean, talk about good fortune. Like, they were probably, for some reason, needing students that year or something. I have no idea. But I got to go study the humanities, which was political history and art history and sculpture. Mm-hmm. And I had to design my own curriculum and write my own thesis in 2 years. And I did that. And then when I was finishing, I still didn't know what I was going to do, because I just figured, well, I'm going to go get an education at Berkeley. And then I still figured, well, I guess I'm going to be a carpenter or something. And I got a card handwritten in the mail in October of my final year at Berkeley. And it was from Father John Bitterman. And he had this way of, he would keep up with some of his students on their birthday. So he knew what my birthday was, October 23rd. And he sent me, it said, "Dear Peter, happy birthday from your fatherly dean. All things are good down here in L.A.," because that's where he had moved from the Bay Area, St. Francis, down to Notre Dame High School in Sherman Oaks, California. Mm-hmm. He said, "I'm now the principal at Notre Dame. Things are going well, except that the science lab burnt down in the first week of school. Other than that, things are great."
You really remember the letter.
And then he said, "P.S. do you want to come down and teach for me?" And here I am 40 years later, and that's how I got into teaching.
What was your relationship like with Mr. Bitterman when you were at school?
I don't remember much about my relationship with him at school, but they took it, priests get, and in many ways deserve, a bad calling because of all the abuse that's happened. But it was his calling to be a mentor. And he would handwrite these notes, and he invited me to come down and teach. And I had never taught, never considered teaching. And I was like, kind of like what I thought about Berkeley. Well, I'll go down to LA and teach for 3 years, because that's what he asked me to do. So I went down and taught high school for 3 years with no preparation, 40 boys in a classroom.
Yep.
At a Catholic all-boys high school at that point. It went co-ed the last year I was there. But so I didn't know anything about classroom management. I didn't know anything about how to manage boys, which is probably why I wrote a book called Mentoring boys, advocacy boys, and mentoring, whatever, and taught English and history, and was a cross country coach, just thrown into this thing. So it was brave, but it was also like, I now think about it that I wish, my own kids now, Noah's 21 and he's in college, and Riley's just about to enter college. And I often think the first 3 years after college, I was thinking of this yesterday when I was reading the paper about how hard it is to get jobs these days for
Yes.
postgraduate kids.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, I wish that everyone would just teach or do public service for 3 years when you got out of college. Like it was part of your requirement, because I didn't know who the hell I was going to be. I made $12,000 a year as a high school teacher. I learned how to write checks and take care of my bills, and how to organize a curriculum and manage kids, and get exercise, and I left LA after 3 years, but I did many other things in my career, but I never really left teaching. Like I kept coming back to it. And I never would have considered being a teacher if that little card hadn't shown up in the mail.
Me neither. Everyone asked me with an English degree, are you going to become a teacher? And I was like, no.
Right.
Yeah, I did not want to be a teacher because I'd had such bad experiences in school. Similar to people on my program, I was like, don't make me go back.
Right.
And I really even struggled joining the program. For years, I pushed this off because I was like, no, I'm not good at school. I had to push through even my own beliefs about being able to go back and do the work that is required.
So what got you into teaching then?
I had a 2-year-old and I was a single mom. And I was...
I read about that, and somebody invited you to substitute at the...
my mom encouraged me to become a substitute teacher.
Mm-hmm.
So I was substitute teacher from... for kindergarten all the way through high school. I would take anything.
Right.
Yeah.
And subbing is even more difficult than having your own classroom.
I taught PE. Like I would teach high school students and junior high.
You walk into a
just
fresh room,
not knowing what you're doing that day.
Oh my
Someone
gosh,
might leave you a
really
lesson
tough.
plan. Some may not. And that was really like intimidating. But I was living with my parents, and I had to make a life somehow. And my mom suggested that I choose a career that would at least mirror my own kids' schedule.
Mm-hmm.
That was her encouragement. I, too, went to college. I didn't know what I was going to do. I was just trying to get away from my family. And I think they knew that probably. But I was supposed to go to Chico State, and I didn't make it that far. I could see the look on my mom's face as we were driving further and further away from the house, and she kept making comments about how far away it was. And we arrived at Sonoma State, and I saw how beautiful the campus was, and I saw that my parents were very hesitant about the idea that I might be going there, and I said, I'll go here. And my mom said, they don't even have your major. And I said, I'll figure it out. And she was like, okay. So yeah, I spent the first 2 years at Sonoma State having no idea what I was going to do. And funny enough, the person who told me to become an English major, I was just responding to her on Instagram this morning. She and I are still occasionally check in with each other. But
Lovely.
She was a grade ahead of me, a little bit older, and she was in the English department. And she said, I really think that you'd be really good at this. I was terrible at math.
Such a key statement to hear, right? Like,
yes, it was pivotal because nobody else was giving me advice.
Someone else look at you and say, I think you'd be good at this.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know I was going to be a teacher.
Nope. And I didn't want to be a teacher, and I was so good at it. And then I was so sad when I had to leave it.
Right.
My ex-husband was like, you can't, he just met me after I finished my first year of third grade, and he said, you can't afford to do this. You're going into debt being a teacher every year.
Right.
As a single parent. What were you doing before this? And I said, I was an administrative assistant. And he said, you should go back. And so I did. And I spent 25 years trying to get out of that career. And every time I would build something outside of it, he'd say, you need to go back. It makes more money.
So this thing about teaching, I hope this isn't just a personal gripe, but I want to applaud that every time you go to an airport or whatever, or anywhere, sometimes they're thanking, armed forces folks and giving
Yes.
them permission to get on the plane first.
Yep.
And granted, that's serious stuff, and I appreciate anybody doing public service.
Me too.
But I often think, what would it be like to have people say, thank you? We want to thank all our public school teachers
For raising all of our
for
kids
raising our kids
for
and
8 hours a day.
creating community.
We
and
spend more time with
we'd like
them.
you to step up here first and get on the plane first.
We spend more time with them than their own parents.
Oh my gosh.
We raised them.
And it's so real as we've been describing, what is happening in those years. So yeah, thank you to all those folks who have committed their career to mentoring. It's a form of mentoring.
It is. It is. And even when I left, I was mentoring others in some way, whether it was my kid's babysitter or, someone that showed up at work in my office that was younger than me, or it bled into everything that I did. And I just never really saw it as a career. And it wasn't until when I moved to Portland and I was in a health crisis that I reconsidered it and kind of went back to mentoring in some ways. Yeah. So,
I just thought of another professor I had at UCSB in my grad program, and she, on the very first day of class, she drew this picture of two hands, and she said, "This is what life is: getting a hand up and giving a hand up."
yes.
And I haven't thought about that in a long time, but it is like that, right? Like these people who helped us get to that next level.
Yes.
And hopefully we're doing that in some ways.
Well, that's the goal. I mean, that's the reason why at this point in my life I went back to grad school, is because I am more resourced now, and I do have, I wouldn't say that I feel wise, but I'm sure that I'm seen as wise compared to a 20-year-old. And so I'm happy to share whatever I've learned or gleaned over the years that has helped me through difficult moments or difficult times. And I think that's really what teaching is about, or mentoring is about, is, yes, being more resourced in the sense that you are reaching down and helping other people up with you, pulling them up.
And I think about the because I started out in teaching and gravitated more towards counseling, that part in the curriculum that has you telling your own stories to the kids is a way in which counseling and teaching are blending, overlap, because they're both involved in mentoring, even though we tend to say counselors aren't mentoring because they have more of a, they're not disclosing as much. Well, and I guess teachers aren't meant to do that either. But
how do you not after an entire year with kids? Yeah.
But
disclose.
It's a little bit of an edgy thing that in that curriculum we have people tell self-disclosure stories about their own experience. Yes, because
that would be considered coaching.
Right, or even inappropriate disclosure, right?
Yes.
But it's done intentionally, and it's done with a lot of experience of it working. As you mentioned in your group, it has an effect, which is that if we don't show up with our own well-thought-out, helpful mentoring stories or whatever, then the kids have a difficult time showing up and being willing to talk about their own experience.
I agree. It's a partnership.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would bump up against the theory that we shouldn't be vulnerable and that we don't deserve to self-disclose.
Right.
I definitely challenge that. Even as a counselor, I challenge that clinically, because I do think that I can read all the books I want about childbirth and tell you how difficult it's going to be. But if you're sitting in front of me and you're talking to me about the fact that you haven't slept in the last 2 weeks because you just had a baby, and I've had one too, we know that I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And same thing if I read about a divorce. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's going to give them adjustment disorder for sure, right? And maybe even some depressive symptoms. And then you go through one and you're like, okay, now I understand why everyone says this is so difficult, right? And then if I have somebody sit in front of me that's been going through a divorce, it's like, I don't just have to say, yeah, that must be really hard. I can also say, even with my eyes, I know.
Mm-hmm.
And makes others feel less alone
Mm-hmm.
in their experience, because that we need each other. We need each other. Right?
So true. I like how this discussion is focused on this mentoring connection, because I've been thinking about that a lot, because I've been writing. You mentioned this in
Yes,
your email.
the Wayfarer book, right? Or is it Wayfaring?
So it's not just, but it's a non-academic writing project that I've been involved in, which is stories for my boys, right? So I'm thinking about how did I find my way? And
As a
I'm not going to
parent?
be around forever, so what would they want to know about me when I'm not here that I wish I knew about my dad who is no longer here, right? Like,
Oh.
just as a document. Or what does this picture mean? Because you know how you found pictures of your parents and you're like, who are those people?
What was happening here?
So
Yeah.
I use some pictures within this piece that I'm writing, and I describe what's going on in the picture and so forth, or as a way to talk about the things I want to say. But it's a kind of mentoring too. Like, I don't want them to be alone at whatever age when I'm not here without some understanding that their dad's still there in some way, right? Like, yeah.
It's really bittersweet.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sometimes I think, oh, they don't want to read this. This is good. But
They will. And can 100% guarantee.
yeah, that's what I would love to have something like that from my father. Yeah.
I spent probably my 30s, my early 30s. I have a bunch of back when micro cassette recorders were a thing. I saw some sort of interview in like maybe Martha Stewart magazine or something about interviewing adults before they pass.
Oh, good for you.
And
Life story interviewing.
I started interviewing my two parents, and they were really resistant against it. But I'm really glad that I did. Good for you. Yeah, at some point I might.
You know, in the development class that you took at Lewis and Clark, didn't you have to take a development course? Development and learning or something like that? Lifespan development?
Lifespan.
Yeah. So I taught that class for many years also. And
I would have loved to have taken that with you, because my experience was like,
I used life story interviewing, which was this text, and their project was to go out during the class and interview an elder, and often it was their grandmother or their father. I know, and then they had to analyze it based on developmental theory, and and many of them came back and said, "I'm so glad I have this document now." And I made all these recordings of my parents and my aunt, and I'm still looking for some of them. I'm hopeful that I will find them, because they were on microcassettes or, 90-minute Maxell cassette tapes.
Which is coming back. Did you see?
No.
Yeah. Yeah. Maxell just released a tape recorder.
Really?
A tape recorder that is Bluetooth enabled. I follow them on Instagram.
Wait, what does it mean that it's Bluetooth enabled?
So, like, you can set it up with Bluetooth speakers now, or your headphones.
Oh.
Like, when we had to
so you
plug
can put in
everything
a cassette
and listen to it. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I need that.
Yes, you do.
In fact, I have all these amazing
recordings
cassettes.
Of things. Yeah.
Not just but Ella Fitzgerald sings the Cole Porter songbook on 2 cassettes that I bought at a used record store in 1989.
You can have those transposed.
I know, but who wants some? I want the
Yeah, you want the
player
original.
that you're talking about.
Yeah, I know. I have I have my dad's Glenn Miller record set.
Gosh.
Yeah. I have a record player though.
Yeah, I don't have one of those anymore.
Yeah, I just got one this last year. I've been really into it.
Oh, that's
This
cool.
analog stuff is all coming back
Yes,
because,
because we're all tired of digitizing.
we're all tired of paying a subscription to things. I
Oh,
mean,
right.
you gotta
Or
pay
not having an album cover to look at, not having an art piece to look at.
and like totally get into the lyrics and
Right. The
yes.
liner notes that people had to write.
Yeah, yeah. All of that is different now. It's
Hmm.
very different. I feel like our kids are missing out on some things, and I think there's a lot of grief around that too.
It's interesting because you asked earlier what I've been reading. And one
Yes.
thing I was just reading yesterday, which I included in one of these stories for my boys, because I wrote one yesterday, was about the hand. So I wrote this book, or I've been reading this book called The Hand by a neurolinguist, neuropsychologist, and he talks about he makes an argument that the hand and our opposing thumb and our ability to manipulate and tool use function and creative use function was part of what had evolutionarily our brains explode, because we started realizing all these things that we could do in the environment, including being a predator and throwing things toward prey. But my son, Noah, is a drummer, and he works professional gigs, and he's studying at the jazz program at PSU.
Oh, is he?
And my other son, Riley, is on the varsity golf team, which is all about this amazing use of hands.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want them to feel. I wrote the piece wanting, and this is really a part of much of the work that I do, especially Oaklanders stuff. I want kids and my own kids to have a respect and an ability to be in physical contact with the world, and not just this
Behind a screen.
digitizing and sitting in front of computers. I mean, I type, and that's a use of my hands, and I'm in front of a screen a lot. But, you were saying we've lost all this stuff and people wanting to get it back. And part of what I think there's something so satisfying and immersive in doing handwork of whatever that happens to be, whether it's working in wood or sculpture or art or tool use or creating a table like this.
Playing piano, playing an
Piano,
instrument,
playing an
doing
actual
knitting,
instrument,
crocheting, all of the creative arts that
and
we
your
don't.
mind, what happens to my mind when
It gets massaged.
I'm so calm and so.
Left and right brain,
Yep.
because of both of the hands. Did
Yep.
you know that?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, Rudolf
left
Steiner
hand.
taught me that.
Yeah, I read that you studied Steiner stuff. So there's an amazing other book called the and his emissary. I'll remember it in a second. But Ian McGilchrist is the author, and it's a tome, and he's a brilliant British doctor, psychologist, neuro, blah 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 blah. And he wrote this book called The Master and His Emissary. And
I've heard of that book.
And it's about the much deeper understanding of why we have a bifurcated brain. Not just that left is about rationality and right is about creativity, but that, for most of us, the right, let me see how this works. The left hemisphere drives the right hand, right? Unless you're left-handed. But his argument is that the right hand and the left hemisphere is about the grabbing function, about this ability to take and grasp what we actually need from the environment. So food, tools, hugs, whatever it happens to be, it's that ability to reach out and make contact. But it's very specified and focused, and it's like this very articulated movement. And that's his argument, is that as a culture we've gotten too driven by the left hemispheric function to the exclusion of the right hemisphere, which is why I love the Oaklander stuff, which is, so in birds, for example, the left hemisphere is paying attention to this, I got to get that worm, right?
Yep.
But their other eye is looking around, making sure that they're safe and understanding the context. And that's what the right hemisphere does, is pays this quiet but more gestalt, open frame of looking at context and relations. And that's why it's related to more artwork, because it's more silent. We don't have the verbal stuff that the left hemisphere drives. So I think art therapy and play therapy gets us into this other part of our experience, which is much broader, much more ambidextrous, and not just this focalized, digitized, computerized, which is what computers do. Is it's all about that tool use, right? Or the design of them was. But and actually, sorry, I'm going off on this a little bit, but like Steve Jobs had that brilliant insight to make the right hemisphere part of the computer by putting images on the screen and having it look like a desktop and having you have a mouse that you can drive.
Yep.
So that's what I want my kids to have, is some understanding that it isn't just about this, computer digital framework. It's also about this touching, experiencing the world, learning through the world by our sensory experience. And by doing. There's my diatribe.
Did you know, I mean, obviously you probably know that the right side is the feminine on your body, and that is about, the receptivity or bringing things in, right? So you would be grabbing. That's why you don't put a watch on your right hand.
Right.
Theoretically.
I don't know if I would want to, because I do stuff on gender too, and I'm not sure I would want to make it that separate, because I would want to think that as a male, I could also be receptive. And
yeah. I'm not saying like femininity as a gender. I mean, the right side of the body is the feminine, at least in the Eastern medicine.
That's interesting.
Theology, if you want to say, and the left side
more of a yin yang.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Like we have both.
Yes.
Each of us have both. I wasn't saying like you don't have any femininity. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. I feel like we're getting close to time here. So
are we?
I mean, I think I could have a whole other podcast episode of all of the questions that I had proposed for you, but it's been so lovely to just have a conversation with you too, which I thought would be the case coming into this anyway. You're very warm and very open, and I appreciate that. I appreciate that you came into the class and you showed us the story, and maybe, you've got all your books there on the floor. We haven't talked about the fact that we've alluded to the fact that you've authored many books. Is there anything that you would like to share since we have a little time here?
Well, I could just show them.
Yeah.
And I want to say thank you to you, Andrea. And I think what's been surprising about this discussion is how, your prompting and setting the scene enabled me to touch on these really relevant themes of mentoring and how powerful that's been, not only having been the recipient of that in my life, of amazing mentoring, but also trying to be the one who's also mentoring others.
Yeah.
And because I didn't know what we were going to talk about for an hour and a half. But,
and here we are.
Yeah. But to have that be one of the central pieces feels really good to me and helpful.
Yeah.
Especially at my age, you're thinking about what are the relevant themes, and that's definitely been a through line.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been your life's work and your passion, and I'm sure that at some point both Riley and I've forgotten Noah are going to appreciate this so much and find it very valuable. But they had you as their dad, and so it's a very different experience for them. I can just say that now that mine is 28, there's different perspective on the fact that everybody else thought I was a great mentor and had great advice. And they were like, yeah. They're just my
Exactly.
mom. And yeah, so now they really, really appreciate the fact that I have that.
Well, thank you for that. And they've taught me a lot too, right? Like I
Yes.
really tried to pay attention to them as they were growing up because now they're 18 and 21. So one thing they did teach me was what became this book called The Bear Inside, which you can actually find on YouTube. There's different translated versions of it, and there's a silent one where it just goes through. The pages turn, and you can read it to your child, and they can use it in therapy. So it's translated in at this point in Bulgarian, Russian, Spanish, and Italian. Although I have to finish the Italian one. But it's a book that my son inspired because I saw him struggling with big emotions, internalized aggression, even being really hard on himself.
Yeah.
And I was trying to find a way to help him put words around that. And then I don't know if you know this about Gestalt approach, but in that perspective, aggressive energy, again, isn't considered just a bad thing. Like we need aggressive energy to bite an apple and to assert ourselves when a bully is trying to take us down and so forth. So it was also a way to try to describe that. So it's called The Bear Inside, which is sort of this intensity that we all have and how do we manage that. So that's that book. Boys Advocacy and Mentoring, we already talked about. And that was written with my colleagues, Howard and Stephen, who I just saw last night. And it's about running groups with boys and how to try to look at both the biology and the sociology of them in ways that might be helpful. And then we talked about this book, which is the Belong and Be You curriculum. And that's the one that Diane and I put together with the help of many students and their stories. And that's a summary of not only developmental themes, like why belonging and being unique are key, but also running a group for 9 weeks and what that might look like. And lastly, but firstly, this was the first book I wrote, Window Frames. When I was young and in grad school, Violet was my mentor, and I went to 10 years of her trainings. And during the summer,
I find that incredible.
And I wrote, the book is subtitled Learning the Art of Gestalt Play Therapy the Oaklander Way. So I just write her 2-week curriculum. Like there's a Monday, there's a Tuesday, there's a Wednesday. And through that, I'm trying to encourage the reader to understand not only what it's like the way she taught, but also what are these principles from a Gestalt perspective, what are the actual drawing, like I did, there's a drawing on the cover. So she uses clay, art, sand tray, puppets, etc.
Animal cards.
All kinds of cards, image cards. And it's been amazing to me that it still has legs. Like I taught on Saturday, I was in Italy for 4 hours on Zoom because there's this worldwide network of her work. There's a website called VioletSolomonOaklanderFoundation.org, and we have an organization that's furthering her work. She passed away in 2021. So there's a worldwide network of people doing this. And, it's kind of niche, like Gestalt play therapy. What is that? But it turns out to be
It's so relevant.
It's so relevant and so
needed.
How do you connect with kids? She wrote a book called Windows to Our Children in 1978, which blew up and that's why there's a worldwide network. It's in all these different languages. But the original title of her book was What Do You Do with the Kid? Which was a way of saying you sit in a room and they don't do this for an hour and a half.
Nope.
Like you and I have been doing. So how do we connect therapeutically? So it's been really, because it incorporates art for me and, body experience, sensory work, and somatic work, and this right brain stuff I really think is part of it. Like it helps us discover aspects of ourselves that we weren't quite aware of because we had our blinders on. So anyway, that's my those are my 4 books. It's not a whole lot of books, but it's 4 of them.
It's a lot of books. It took a lot of time. And I want to touch on, because I listened to you talk about this at some point, not in class, but on one of the videos that I watched on your YouTube channel, that you were drawn to Violet's work because of trying to find out why it was so relatable in so many different cultures.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to share?
Well, that was my question. Why? Because I was at university and we were trying to understand cross-cultural work and, decenter whiteness and our own U.S. frame. And here was this woman in Santa Barbara where I was going to school who was running these 2-week institutes during the summer, and people from all over the world would come and study with her. And I was like, what is she teaching that's so relevant to so many people? And I still have that question. I think I know what that is, and it's because she's talking about something very human. It's not just, the experience of play is a universal function.
And
it
it's
happens in
very
every
difficult
culture.
as an adult.
And it's more challenging as an adult, and we forget that. So she really honored it. Like, no, you got to really, in the same way that you tell your own stories in the group curriculum, you got to play with kids when you work with them. You don't just make up cognitions. You actually involve yourself. So play is a universal function. Narrative is a universal function. Metaphor is a universal function. Art is a universal function. So, so it can appear in these different, in Bulgaria or in South Africa or in Mexico, and working with different kids, but that's just a human thing. Those are human things that she somehow touched on and put together.
Yeah.
So I'd really recommend her book. It's really amazing.
Yeah.
Windows to Our Children.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you for asking.
You're welcome. I think that was core to a lot of your purpose and bringing meaning maybe to the curriculum that you also are trying to pass on to others.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know how much she means to you.
Yeah.
And it was really important to also state that she was a valuable added resource to who you became as a mentor, right?
And not somebody who was she wasn't robustly accepted in academia.
Yeah.
In fact, originally,
she might have been shunned.
My advisor said, that's not UC researchable material. So that kind of finding where people are doing really quality work in the margins, or I think universities have their place, and sometimes the things that we want to pay most attention to kind of fall out because we're so much in the academic realm.
Yeah.
But sometimes I also want us to be able to underline, like her work, why is that work important? We want to understand it. We don't want to just pretend like it's good and not have any research around it or
she was a social
validity.
worker working in LA, so I mean, a lot of hands-on experience.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, a lot of hands-on experience. Very informed in the work that she was doing, and I wish I could have met her. I'm sure she was very lovely too.
I have some videos I could share of her doing work.
I've watched the one that is available on your.
Oh, good.
On the
With
YouTube.
Blake.
Oh with yeah. Blake. Yeah, and I learned a lot. And it brought me back to Waldorf school.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Hands on.
Head, heart, and hands.
Exactly. That's what I wrote about yesterday.
Yeah.
Trying to integrate those 3 things.
Yep.
Make sure the hands are in there.
Because it's a whole balanced person, right? And that was what Rudolf Steiner was trying to teach, is that it's really easy to balance out a child when you can see that they just need help in a particular area. And that is the focus of the educator that year, right?
Right.
Is to bring that kid into balance. Is his whole that was his whole mission, at least that's what I took from it.
Yeah, and Oaklander would talk about she would define the self as your senses, your body, your feelings, your intellect, and the integrated functioning of all of those. And you need yourself. So that's why it's important to do sensory work. You need a sense of self, like you need to feel grounded in who you are in order, especially to take on difficult
Yes.
therapeutic content or whatever. So how do we help ground and you said balance and integrate a child so that they're even prepared to learn something or address something?
And it's informative of how they will become an adult, too.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good teachers out there. Piaget, Steiner, Gestalt.
Yeah. They're
People
all my
doing
favorites.
good work.
They influence a
Old-timey.
lot of the work that I do. Yeah. Well, I mean, I am a Gen Xer, so I think I benefited from some of the, as you put it, hippie ideas. I at least was on the tail end of that, in elementary school in the 70s. So I benefited from that for sure. And it probably very much informs the way I look at things and the way I show up in the counseling program. And
You weren't born with an iPhone in your hand?
I wasn't born. No, I've even been accused of using my phone, through text messages, very businesslike. And it's like, well, the first time I used a phone was for business. Like,
I actually use punctuation when I'm texting.
I do too, and I spell out all the words, and I
was
don't use a
told
lot of
that's like-
emoticons. And yes, I know, same. And I come across very serious.
Isn't it interesting how emoticons are so important?
They are.
Because they show the physical, they show the sensory, they show the face.
They
This is
do.
how I want you to take this.
Yes. Well, also, like, miscommunication happens even through email. I think we learned that probably early on. At least I did, working in a corporate atmosphere, that you can send an email and people don't understand your tone. So I think that's what people are implying, that, using an emoticon, at least, I'm less serious.
Emoji.
Emoji, excuse me. I'm less serious if I have, me cracking up with tears coming out of my eyes. Right?
I think that one's overused. With the tears going.
Oh, man. I don't know.
Because people don't laugh that hard.
True.
It seems like an overstatement.
Sometimes I do laugh that hard, though.
I think I should.
I do. People crack me up.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Okay, this I think is how we should end.
All right.
Okay, what feels most meaningful to you at this stage of your life and work?
Well, I mean, there's many things that do. Family, nature, my boys, feeling relevant still.
Yeah.
But I'll go back to that theme that we focused on really, which is mentoring, and how it's reminded me even in this conversation how vitally important those connections are across generations, and a note card in the mail can change a whole life. Yeah.
You don't even write cards anymore.
I know. Would it be a text? Would the text do the same thing?
I don't know. I can't imagine.
Yeah, those small ways in which we shape
connection
and are shaped by others. We shape others by our help, and they shape us. So I think that's what I'm taking away from today. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. Yeah. How do you feel we could create more love in the world, Peter?
I would say through that.
Okay.
I mean, if love is, as I've heard you say on your other podcasts, that, willingness to engage, then mentoring is that willingness to notice someone. You're really good at this, Have you thought about, and maybe they're not going to hear it, and maybe they will, or maybe they'll hear it later in life, but there are those turning points, it really seems to me,
yes,
that when people hit you or send that card at just the right moment. So I would say that's how we can have more love, is by paying attention, and maybe both by looking for good mentors and also being good mentors.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you for inviting me today.
You're welcome.